The jungle was silent, too silent. Then came the crackle of gunfire, tearing through the mist. Voices on the radio screamed for backup, desperation dripping from every word. But there was no help coming. Not for another 50 minutes. By then, they would all be gone. And then from a ridge, no one was watching a single shot cut the night in half. One man fell, and the battlefield shifted. Who fired that round, and why did they remain a ghost in the dark? Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The jungle was black as tar. No moon, only mist curling low, and the frantic hiss of radios breaking the silence. Task Force Orion 3 was pinned in a narrow valley. Gunfire ricocheted in staccato bursts, echoing off wet stone. Breathless voices crackled through static multiple contacts. Closing in fast, we can't hold ammunition was almost gone. The team's perimeter shrank with every passing second. 50 minutes until reinforcements could arrive, an eternity they didn't have. Orion 3 to base. The call came again. Louder, more desperate. We need support now. Do you copy? We won't last. The plea cut through the operations tent at Camp Ironwood like a knife. Across the base, Madison Cole adjusted her headset. She was the one assigned to monitor the radios. Nothing more. Her name wasn't on any mission roster, not on combat duty, not anywhere that mattered. She sat in a dim equipment bay, rows of silent screens glowing pale blue. In front of her, an old XM 2010 rifle scope sat on the table. Not mounted, not used, just another relic she kept polishing out of habit. Madison was 31, compact build, brown hair tied back, eyes steady and unreadable. Those eyes once looked down endless rifle barrels, across mountains, through chaos. 4 years earlier, in the frozen ridges of Kunar Valley, she had carved her legend, pinned between insurgents and blizzard winds. She had made impossible shots, shots that kept her unit breathing when every calculation said they wouldn't. But after that night, she walked away. Too many bodies seen through glass. Too many decisions she no longer wanted to make. Now she was technical support. Reliable, they called her, which in military code meant safe to ignore. The younger soldiers never hid their smirks. I bet that rifle weighs more than she does. Didn't even know snipers could go out of style. Madison heard it all. She never reacted, never gave them the satisfaction, but the words sank deeper than she liked to admit. She had chosen to step away from combat. What she hadn't chosen was being invisible. Invisible in every briefing, every assignment, every glance. Tonight, the invisibility burned. On the comms channel, Orion 3's leader tried to sound calm, but the cracks were clear. Enemy closing from 3 sides. Ammunition red. We're down to last mags. The operations officer at Ironwood pressed his earpiece. Hold tight. Ground units en route. ETA 50 minutes. Everyone in the tent knew 50 minutes might as well be forever. Madison's chest tightened. She could picture it without needing the screens, the circle tightening. Muzzle flashes sparking in the fog. Soldiers counting bullets like heartbeats. It was Kunar all over again, different jungle. Same countdown to silence. She turned the scope in her hands, the glass still pristine, the adjustment still smooth. Through this lens, she had once been the line between life and death. Now it was just metal and memory. Her headset buzzed with a scream of static and gunfire. Orion 3 taking casualties. We can't break out. Repeat, we cannot break out. The sound of trained soldiers staring at finality. She had heard it once before. Something inside her clicked. Not a plan, not a thought, just certainty. Certainty that waiting was no longer an option. She stood, crossed the bay, and keyed open the weapons locker. The panel light blinked red, then green. Inside lay the XM 2010, long and black, patient in its rest. Dust coated the barrel. The sling was stiff from years of storage, but when she lifted it, the balance was perfect, like it had been waiting for her. Madison worked the bolt once. Chamber clear, scope locked into place. Her hands moved with the quiet rhythm of muscle memory, each motion faster than thought. She remembered Colonel Grant Holloway's words at sniper school. The weapon doesn't decide. You do. The hardest choice isn't pulling the trigger, it's knowing when you must. That voice echoed now, louder than the radio static. Orion 3 shouted again, fading under fire. Base, we're collapsing. We then only static in the thud of explosions. Her pulse steadied, not spiked. Madison slung the rifle over her shoulder, pulled a pack from under the cot. Loaded ammunition, night optics, med kit hands smooth, decisive, absolute. The camp outside buzzed with routine. Generators hummed. Guards swapped shifts at the gate. Unaware that one operator was about to vanish into the trees, she paused at the door of the tent. For 4 years, she had hidden behind keyboards and radios, trying to disappear. Now, disappearing meant something else slipping beyond the wire. Unseen, unauthorized. She pulled her hood over her hair and stepped into the night. The mist swallowed her silhouette in seconds. The base behind her never knew she was gone. Back on the comms, Orion 3's channel flared one last time. 20 minutes left. If that, we're outnumbered. Anyone, please copy. Madison adjusted the rifle strap against her shoulder and whispered to herself, copy. It was the first word she'd spoken in hours. And with it, she crossed the perimeter fence, into the jungle, into the dark. The rules said, stay put. The orders said, wait. Madison Cole did neither. Madison slipped beyond the wire. The mist closed in around her, thick, damp, alive with sound. Every step into the jungle was a step further from orders, closer to war. She kept the XM-2010 snug across her back. Ammunition pressed against her ribs. Each magazine a silent promise. Her breath fogged faintly in the cold night air. The jungle didn't welcome her. Roots clawed from the earth. Branches lashed at her face, dripping with dew and rot. Somewhere ahead, enemy scouts prowled. Flashlights pierced the mist in narrow cones, sweeping back and forth. Madison dropped flat, chest pressed into the soil. One beam skimmed so close she saw the dust motes dance. A voice barked in a language she knew too well. Footsteps crunched closer, then drifted away. She rose slowly, dirt clinging to her palms. A low hiss came from the undergrowth. A coiled viper, scales glistening, blocked her path. Madison froze. The reptile's tongue flicked once, twice, then it slithered into the brush. Her heart rate stayed steady discipline over fear. She pushed on. The jungle thinned into a ravine, its floor lined with jagged stones. Above, a sheer cliff rose nearly 25 meters. That was the high ground. That was where she needed to be before Orion 3 collapsed entirely. She had minutes to climb, carrying 40 pounds of steel and gear. Madison anchored her boots into cracks. Her fingers gripped wet granite, slick as glass. Every movement was slow, precise, unforgiving. Halfway up, a shot cracked in the distance. She looked down, flares burned red through the valley mist. Orion 3's line was shrinking. The urgency threatened to rush her, but speed without control meant falling, breaking, dying. She forced herself into rhythm, hand, foot, breath. Her muscles screamed. Sweat ran into her eyes, salty, blinding. Still, she climbed, silent against the stone. At 12 meters, her foot slipped, her body swung, pack dragging her weight. She clamped her fingers into a fissure, jaw tight, refusing to fall. Grit tore skin from her palms. Blood smeared across the rock. She pulled herself up with sheer will. The cliff did not care. It never did. But she conquered it one deliberate motion at a time. At 20 meters, the memory came. Snow, not stone. Cold biting harder than knives. Kunar Valley. Her breath white, lungs burning, teammates scattered, pinned, screaming for air support that never came. She remembered Sergeant Lewis clutching his side, blood freezing black. She remembered Lieutenant Hayes calling coordinates no one answered. And she remembered the silence after the last plea. She had been prone in the snow, rifle steady. The enemy fire drew closer, shadows against the storm. Every bullet she had left mattered more than her own heartbeat. She made shots no one believed possible. Distances distorted by blizzard winds. One target fell, then another, then a dozen more. When it ended, half her team was alive because of her. No one spoke of it later. The mission was classified, the truth buried. But she remembered. Every night, every time she closed her eyes. Her hand slipped on damp granite, snapping her back to now. She wasn't in Kunar. She was in Ironwood jungle. Soldiers dying below. She clenched the rock until her nails cracked. She inhaled slow, deep, steady. And Colonel Holloway's words filled her mind. The weapon doesn't decide. The person behind it does. The hardest choice is knowing when you must. That lesson had never left her. It wasn't about perfect timing. It was about refusing to wait until it was too late. She drove upward, last meters of stone giving way. Boots scraped, shoulders burned. Finally, she dragged herself onto the ledge. Her chest heaved once, twice, but she didn't collapse. She rolled onto her stomach, scanning the valley below. Muzzle flashes flickered through the fog, 3 arcs closing in. The circle around Orion 3 was nearly shut. The team's fire was thin, scattered, fading. Madison checked her watch. 12 minutes until the line broke. Maybe less. Not 50, not 30. 12. She unclipped her pack, laid out her rifle, and set the bipod into stone. Every motion fluid, practiced, final. There was no hesitation left in her. Her hands bled onto the stock, but the grip was steady. Her eye found the scope, glass clear, breath slowed, pulse evened. Below, Orion 3's voices rose over comms. We're almost out, positions collapsing. Anyone, do you hear us? Madison exhaled, whispering back to herself, I hear you. Her finger brushed the trigger guard. The hunt was about to begin. Madison pressed her cheek to the stock. The scope filled with the valley below. Every muzzle flash, every silhouette, every breath of the enemy was magnified. Her first target stood out immediately. The assault leader helmeted, gesturing, barking orders from an elevated ridge. Range 650 meters. She inhaled slowly, waited for the wind to pause its restless shift. Finger eased against the trigger. The rifle cracked. Recoil jolted against her shoulder. Through the glass, the leader dropped mid-command. Lifeless. The enemy formation wavered. Voices shouted in confusion. Men ducked behind rocks. For the first time all night, the circle faltered. She didn't celebrate. Bolt worked smooth. Next round chambered. The scope swung to her second target, an entrenched machine gun, spitting fire across Orion 3's cover. Its rhythm had caged the team, forcing them flat, distance 900 meters. She tracked the burst, 2 seconds fire, 3 seconds reload, calculated the pause, the angle, the drift of fog. The reticle settled, 1 round cut the night. The gunner folded, his weapon silent. The line of tracers vanished like a string cut loose. On the radio, a voice broke through static. Unknown sniper, identify yourself. Who's supporting us? Madison pressed transmit once, her voice calm. Hold your ground. I'll handle overwatch. She released the key. No further explanation. Confusion rippled below, but hope lit their tone. Orion 3 shifted positions, soldiers dragging wounded into cover. They bought themselves seconds and she multiplied them. 2 squad leaders rallied, trying to regain control. Madison marked the first, crouched behind a burned-out vehicle. 700 meters. Partial cover. The shot threaded metal and fog. Perfect. The man collapsed before his orders left his throat. The second leader ran to regroup survivors. Madison adjusted elevation, tracked his sprint. Her crosshairs found his chest as he shouted for retreat. Another shot rang. His body pitched into the dirt. The encirclement frayed. Enemy coordination bled away with their leaders. Orion 3 seized the gap, pushing toward defensible rocks. Then Madison caught motion in her peripheral vision. Not through the scope, through instinct. Shadows moving closer. Too close. Two hostiles, breaking off from the fight. They had triangulated her position. They were climbing fast, rifles ready. Relocating would take minutes she didn't have. Minutes Orion 3 couldn't afford. So Madison made her choice. She slid the rifle aside, unsheathed her combat knife, checked the pistol at her thigh, and pressed herself into the darkness. The first assailant crested the ridge. He moved low, disciplined, scanning for her silhouette. He never saw the blur in the shadows. Madison struck fast, blade angled clean. The fight ended silent, brutal, efficient. His body slumped without a sound. 90 seconds later, the second arrived. He expected his partner. Instead, Madison waited exactly where he least wanted her. Gunmetal flashed. His reflexes were sharp, but hers were sharper. A short struggle, grunts, fists, steel against stone. The knife slashed. The pistol fired once. Then silence again. Both threats neutralized. Madison exhaled hard, steadying. Her heart pounded, but her mind stayed cold. She retrieved her rifle, slid back into prone. The valley still raged with scattered gunfire, but the tide had shifted. Enemy forces no longer pressed. They recoiled. Through the scope, she confirmed. Groups breaking contact, retreating into fog. Orion 3 moving with purpose toward extraction coordinates. She keyed the radio once more. Area is open. Use the window. Move now. Her voice was flat, leaving no room for hesitation. Copy, unknown sniper, came the reply. Outstanding work. Who are you? Madison didn't answer. She watched their shapes pull away through the mist. Saw the wounded carried, weapons slung. Every step bought by her 9 minutes of violence. The jungle quieted. Only the echo of her shots lingered in stone. Only the smell of cordite hung in the damp air. 9 minutes had redrawn the battlefield. 9 minutes had turned a massacre into survival. And not one soul below knew her name. She pulled back from the scope, wiped blood from her palm, packed her rifle, shouldered her gear, and let the jungle swallow her again. The mission wasn't written in any file. The kill count wouldn't exist on any report, but Orion 3 was alive, and that was enough. Dawn broke pale over Camp Ironwood. Mist still clung to the valley, heavy and reluctant to lift. The jungle carried no trace of the gunfire from hours before. Inside the communications bay, Madison sat at her terminal, headphones on, screens glowing, fingers tapping through logs. To anyone passing, she looked like she had never moved all night. The tent flap rustled. Commander Laura Beckett stepped inside, boots wet with morning dew. Her eyes scanned the room, sharp, deliberate. "Cole," she said softly. Madison turned, calm, controlled. "Ma'am." Beckett approached the desk. She placed something on the metal surface with a distinct metallic click. A single brass casing, gleaming under fluorescent light. Madison didn't touch it. She just looked. Custom match grade. Fired from a rifle not issued to anyone here. Orion 3 returned at 0500. Beckett said, 4 wounded, none killed. They called it impossible. Then somebody changed the odds. Her tone was measured, not accusing. Madison leaned back, eyes steady. "I monitored the comms all night. Ma'am, heard the whole thing." Her voice betrayed nothing. Beckett studied her. The shooter had skill, not just skill experience. Wind calls, timing, judgment. That doesn't happen by accident. Her hand rested on the casing. Silence stretched. Generators hummed outside. A bird cawed weakly in the distance. Finally, Beckett's mouth curved faintly. "Some decisions," she said. don't come with authorization codes. They come with responsibility. Her gaze held Madison's. And sometimes, breaking protocol is the only way anyone makes it home. Madison's throat tightened, but she didn't flinch. I wouldn't know about that. Ma'am. Her hands returned to the keyboard, tapping aimlessly. Beckett slid the casing across the desk. Keep it, or don't. Either way, whoever did this earned more than silence. Then she turned, heading for the flap. At the door she paused. Cole, she added. Yes, ma'am, I'll be recommending you for advanced combat certification. Priority review. No request. No question. Just a fact delivered. Then Beckett was gone. The casing sat alone on the desk. Madison stared at it, then pushed it aside. Her computer chimed, new message received. Assignment modification. Cole. Madison. Advanced combat certification. Priority status. Her jaw clenched. She highlighted the text and pressed delete. The screen returned to silence. She went back to monitoring channels, back to her invisible post. But the decision had already escaped her hands. A week later, her name appeared on the roster, not as technician, as operator. No fanfare, no speeches. It was simply there, in black and white, impossible to erase. The message had traveled through channels far above her. The change didn't go unnoticed. Young soldiers who once smirked now glanced with caution. Some offered nods they never would have given before. Sergeant Kyle Mercer found her at the armory, the same man who joked about her rifle being heavier than she was. Now he shifted awkwardly, helmet in hand. Ma'am, he started. Madison looked up, expression unreadable. Yes. Sergeant, I was wrong, Mercer admitted. I made assumptions. I shouldn't have. Appearances can lie. His voice was low, genuine. Madison slid a cleaning cloth down her rifle barrel. No apology needed. We all make judgments with the information we have. Her tone was calm, almost gentle. Still, Mercer pressed. But I should have known better. In this work, the deadliest ones are often the quietest. He swallowed, meeting her eyes. Madison let the silence hang, then nodded once. Remember that. It might save you one day. She returned to her task, dismissing him with quiet finality. By evening, the base was humming with drills. Engines revved, boots struck gravel, orders carried on the air. Madison walked past it all, unnoticed yet no longer unseen. She reached the shooting range as the sun dipped low. The mountains glowed amber, shadows long across the dirt. She laid her rifle on the bench and sat. The scope gleamed in fading light. She cleaned it slowly, cloth tracing circles across the glass. Each movement was deliberate, unhurried, ritual. Through the scope, she caught the last glint of sun. It burned gold, sharp, almost blinding, reflected back into her steady eyes. She thought of Orion 3 alive because of those 9 minutes. She thought of Kunar, of the blizzard, of silence that had nearly swallowed her years ago. And she thought of Colonel Holloway's voice, echoing across time. The weapon doesn't decide. You do. He had been right then. He was right now. Madison disassembled the rifle, each piece clicking into place, metal fitting perfectly, every part designed for the other. Teams were like that, too. Some worked in daylight, decorated and applauded. Others in shadow, never named, never praised. Both necessary, both vital. She had chosen her place, not in reports, not in medals, not in headlines, but in darkness where her presence was measured only in survival. Her pack closed with a quiet snap. The sky darkened, one star after another appearing overhead. The range emptied, leaving her silhouette alone against twilight. Her voice, barely above a whisper, cut through the silence. Some soldiers exist so others can sleep. They choose the dark, not the light. But when the radio cries for help, they will always answer. She stood, rifle slung across her shoulder, eyes steady on the horizon. The jungle rustled faintly, as if reminding her that another night would come, and with it, another choice. The question remained not for her, but for those listening. Have you ever seen someone turn darkness into hope when no one else could?